everybody, and welcome back to Painting Up the Monster Manual, episode 63, where we're looking at the animated broom. So, we previously covered the animated items quite a few sessions back. We're talking like months and months ago, where Richard and I covered the animated rug, or the rug of smothering. We did the animated armor and the animated weapon, or the animated sword. Then obviously with the change to D&D 2024, that book is actually, the new Monster Manual has actually added in the animated broom. Now, this is by far my absolute favourite mini that Richard has sent me for this bout of stuff, because this is spectacular. I'm actually going to stand up so we can get a decent focus on that. It is so small, yet just perfect. It's very Fantasia. And as a kid growing up watching things like Fantasia, it's a big hit for me. And I figured since today, I need to start getting used to this. I'm going to try and use this towards the end, this new Iwata Eclipse that the airbrush company sent us out, thanks to Richard, doing some work with them. And I'm going to attempt to do the OSL of the Spell Glow with that. Now, with that, the rest of this I don't think is going to be too hard to do, because it's mostly wood, both the base plate, which again is a really simple wood with a padlock on there, a broken bit of paneling, and then this is mostly going to be one set of colours, which is going to be brown. So I don't think it's going to take me too long to get all of that through, but I think I have to be careful with how I go about doing that. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to attack with some base colours of browns first, then I'm going to put the white onto that spell effect, and then I'm going to OSL it. Otherwise, if you are looking for minis, do check out Warrior Prints 3D. They are your one-stop shop for all your 3D printing needs. And I just sent Richard a list, and these are the kind of things that he finds for me for this show. So please, if you are looking for D&D minis or any tabletop minis and you can't quite find something, just send him a message and he's awesome. He will get right on it. Morning, Connor, how you doing? Welcome in. You've missed the chaos where my Streamlabs crashed and came back in with absolutely everything overlay-wise from the past several months was just on top of us. It was absolutely wild. But we're back in. So let's talk about the animated broom. So this is a new little bit of lore that's been put in there. So the animated broom keep their surroundings tidy and defend them when necessary. Launching into the air, these brooms dart about, attacking foes from unexpected angles. Other flying objects like animated tools or staffs might also be used, or might also use this stat block. So this stat block itself is actually really quite handy and useful for more things than just the animated broom. You could literally use it for many other things. Let's have a quick look at the actual stat block itself. So it is a CR 1/4 creature, so it's quite a small monster realistically. It's got an AC of 15, which I think for a CR 1/4 is quite high, but I think that takes into account its hardness and its speed, because it does have a 5-foot ground speed but a 50-foot movement speed, so this thing is quick. As for its top stat is Dex, its strength is 0, its everything else is in the minuses apart from its constitution, which is also 0, but intelligence -5, wisdom -3, charisma -5. It obviously has construct immunities, so it's going to have immunity to poison, psychic, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned. It then has blind sight, because obviously it doesn't have eyes, so it magically senses things, and a passive perception of 7. Doesn't speak any languages, and its HP is 14 or 4d6, so that's not too bad there as well. It does have a +5 initiative, which is pretty good, and what I do like about this particular monster is it has a trait called Flyby. The broom doesn't provoke an opportunity attack when it flies out of an enemy's reach. So this thing is quick enough that they are immune to attacks of opportunity, which is great because you can then have them moving around. And with that 14 HP, you're not worried about like the melee classes just taking them out. It's action, it's one attack, it's a slam, it's a melee attack, +5 reach, 5 to hit, and it does 1d4 +3 bludgeoning damage. So it's not all that much, but what I really like about these is you could use these very Fantasia-like, and have them stack up or be tons of minions in a animated dungeon, an animated boss fight, or anything like that. And you can have loads of these flying about all over the room, and I really, really like the idea that you could play around with it. Otherwise, we need to jump into trying to get this painted within an hour. I do think I am going to be able to do that. This is going to be a pretty simple job. I'm actually going to start, I'm going to put a base layer down. I'm just going to jump straight into it, so let's go from there. So I've got 1 hour, we're going to go. I'm going to start with some oak brown, and I'm going to use that as my base layer for everything. This is my go-to paint for any kind of woods or any kind of browns. This is oak brown from the Army Painter, and it is one of my absolute favorites. I am going to go grab a mixing palette, or one I can put paint into. Otherwise, how are you all doing out there? Siobhan of the Dead, how are you? Welcome into chat. How's the rest of you doing today? How is life treating you? So, I don't need too much. I'm going to put a tiny little blob in there. And I've actually laid out my paints in a way that's going to be a little bit easier to help me today. So I've got my browns, my blacks, my metallics, because there is a little padlock on here as well. But I do want to start, and I'm going to dry brush this brown all over it. Absalom Dak, I'm good, thanks. Playing D&D at 1. Hell yeah! Same group, have you started a new one, Dak? So I've taken most of this off, and I'm going against the grain of that wood, and I am quite literally covering this whole thing, because even that padlock is going to be great to have that old brown rusted look on it, or in those recesses. But I really like oak brown. Just a dry brush over black, and it's really rich. You could almost say it's already almost done. But that's as far as that one needs to go for now. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to grab, and this is a lot harder to get because it's so thin. And although I know Richard prints with very sturdy resin, I am very worried about snapping this. And I want to make sure that I'm getting all of those bristles and everything, because I'm going to use a lighter brown on those later on. But otherwise, I'm not too bothered about it hitting where the spell is, because I'm going to hand paint that white before I hit it with that airbrush later. Yeah, Connor, I heard as well. I'm not going to talk about that on stream, but I heard as well. Yeah. So, I'm playing the Witchlight game on Thursday. Oh, okay, nice. Grand Tar getting some pointers for painting Kitty, expecting to become a pro after this hour. Have you got the mini then, or has that been... do you know if Jack's ordered that? Obviously ready for Bloodpunk in a week, because obviously we need to get you guys in. And dry brushing's going to be your friend, especially for a newbie painter. But you're quite artistic, so I think you're going to be absolutely fine. So, I have quite literally dry brushed that entire broom and the base in the same colour. That's it for that brown. We're done. Oh, nice, you're DMing later, Connor. Nice. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of blue tack. I'm going to apply that to my mini holder, and I'm just going to try and gently put this in there without it snapping. Simply because I just want to keep it in place, and I want that really fine spell-like effect. I need that all to be white, and I'm going to come in with Trooper White from Duncan Rhodes, and I'm going to try and paint that all on now, so that when I get to doing my OSL later with the Iwata Eclipse, which is this thing right here, which I'm very, very excited to try and very scared to try because it's so very pretty. But I really want a decent base for how I'm going to do that magic, because the idea is being able to see that spell effect and then have it really bright from the actual source of light itself, which is going to be the actual spell magic. Then the light it casts onto the broom from those different angles is going to be obviously the OSL, the object source lighting effect. So I'm going to grab this brush right here, wet it up a little bit. I'm going to grab some of that white, I'm going to try and paint it in. So, don't think he's got it yet, but we'll check in with him. Okay, I don't know if Richard's going to send it here or not, because obviously it's sponsored to us, or if he's going to send it straight to Jack, but I imagine Jack will tell him to send it straight here. And then we can get you all hooked up and started on painting. Then, also, Aslan Dak currently GMing a Witchlight campaign. It's so good. Oh, nice. Oh, yes, you are, aren't you, Siobhan? The only problem with it being on that blue tack, obviously, it's pliable and it moves, and that's kind of hard to deal with sometimes. And I don't want to press my hand against things too hard, because I don't want to snap anything, because I am quite heavy-handed, and dyspraxia does make me feckin' clumsy. In terms of using these in a game, obviously animated items are really great. They could work really well in a Witchlight game, because obviously you've got the kind of like the Fae, the Whimsy, the Carnival, the kind of places you'd expect to find animated items. So that could be quite fun. Personally, I really like having stuff like this in Mage's Dungeons, in Wizard's Keeps and stuff like that. Places that is very Fantasia, that, you know, you go into a mundane cleaning cupboard and all of a sudden the party's being attacked by a broom. And for me, they're the kind of encounters that I think people remember. Like, oh, remember that time we were fighting that broom? And then you get people who don't play Dungeons and Dragons that are like, what? And I quite like that. As for... I do need to be careful not to hit the rest of the broom, just because I don't want to have to go over too much, but realistically it shouldn't be too bad. I'm just trying to grab the undersides of that spell more than anything at the moment, just so that when I glue it down, which the reason I'm doing this now is so that I can glue it down to that base in a moment and it's dried and already ready. Is anybody out there painting today? If so, what are you painting? Now, if Richard was here today, he could tell me that I could use another colour underneath this to then get, well, underneath the pink that I'm going to use in a bit, to get different effects. But I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. We've only got the hour. Obviously, we're not trying to push a fantastic paint job. We're just trying to get it tabletop ready. But I wanted to see if I could also do that with an airbrush, especially for that OSL, because I think OSL is a very hard technique to get right, especially without an airbrush. And it takes a lot of glazing, which is obviously very thin layers of paint, very transparent paints, when you are doing it by brush. Okay, so we've got the majority of the underside, and like I said, that's not fully covered, but it is ready for the sake of being glued to that base, so that I have enough area covered so that when I come in with that airbrush, we're going to get a decent, really strong colour from it. Otherwise, I'm going to take that blue tack, I'm going to put it away again, and then it's time to use the second colour on this. And I'm going to take, so my oak brown's out the way. I'm now going to use fur brown from the Army Painter. This is going to be my ready, almost like sienna style colours, or my, sorry, not sienna, umbra colours, which, is it umbra? I'm sure it's like burnt umbra, one of my brown paints that I use from the craft store. But it gives you a nice red in there, which I really, really like. Grab that. I'm not going to go all the way to the centre with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the edges, and I'm going to let that almost be a lighter highlight. I will get those planks that are protruding up, but I'm going to keep a darker circle in the centre. Normally I would do that for shadow, but when it comes to painting minis and using the bases, I do like to keep it like that. It seems to act like a focal point for me. I'm crocheting, so I guess I'm painting with yarn. That moth you did, by the way, is fucking cool. If you ever show Tamsin that, she'll go nuts for it. She is a big fan of moths. So, we have that one in play. That's them to one side. I'm then going to take some rough iron. This is a metallic paint from the Army Painter. And I'm going to cover basically the entirety of that padlock and the details of the nails that we have in those floorboards when that focuses up. Whoop. There you go. And I like the idea that this broom is sweeping those bits of debris away. So, let's grab. Whoop. That was quick to come out. I'm going to grab a slightly thinner and longer brush. And I'm going to use this as a base layer for the entire thing. I won't paint into the lock itself, but I will try and get as much coverage as I can across the whole thing. I want it to be a big iron lock. So, what I don't want to do is I don't want to go down onto the base where the wood is. I would definitely want to keep the metallic separated from the wood. And if I have done, which I have done just there, I can use the side of the brush, a little bit of water, and I'm just going to wash it away, drying between the strokes just to thin it down and get that glistening metallic paint away. So, come on, focus up. There we go. So obviously we've got a lot of browns on there at the moment, but we are going to change it up. I'm going to use some cobalt or some plate mail in a minute to add a bit of silver to that, and then I might use a tarnished metal called Typhus Corrosion, I believe it is, which is a Citadel paint, an effect paint, to just add a little bit of grime, a little bit of something to that paint job. So obviously, being such a small mini, sometimes the base is going to be doing a lot of that heavy lifting. Once more, just checking if I've got any on the base around those pins on the floor, and just washing and taking away anything that might have done so. There we go. So, again, just starting to bring those metallic bits out of the woodwork, as it were. And hopefully, that will be like a pop of colour in a minute on those particular bits. So we're going to take plate mail. This is a silver. I'm going to add that to highlighting areas of that lock. And I'm doing all of this while that white on the broom is drying, so I've got time before I glue it down. I don't need much at all. Just going to take some of that back off as well, just because it is a little wet. And I don't want this to run, I want it to sit on highlighted areas. Specifically, where light would be coming from, or bits that are closer to the top. So we've got the arch of the actual padlock, the corners, and probably one of the edges. Most likely the edge higher up. Obviously the inner lock also has an edge. Come on. What you should see already is that light highlight. We can go a little bit further there just to have it come away from the base a bit more. And we're going to do the same. We're going to try and get those little pins and just put a little dab of the silver metallic onto the top of it. So we've got a nice texture of both. There you go. I then, just because these particular panels and these broken bits of wood are slightly raised in a way, we want to accent those a little bit as well, because they are a point of interest and they need to be highlighted as such. So we're going to take our fur brown and we're going to grab a little bit of white, a little bit of that fur brown, just mix it together. Should probably use not a liner brush for that, but an actual brush. Obviously, if I use a liner, I'm going to end up damaging the brush, and we don't want that. I think what I'm going to do though, so I've got this kind of colour here, which is very pastel-y, but I want it to be a bit brighter, maybe like some of the orange of the fire or some of the, I don't know, something a bit more poppy. So I'm going to grab a little bit of orange and yellow, and I'll probably start with a little bit of orange and just add that in there. And it really is a very, very, very small amount. I'll put it next to the previous one, if I can get it. Ooh, you can tell I haven't used that in a while. Let's grab something that's going to unclear that. So, let's grab. Oof. There we go. Right. I realised I hadn't used that orange in a while. I'm now going to put it into a different one so it doesn't just splurge out everywhere. There we go. Going to take a small dab of that orange. I'm just going to mix it in with the other two. There we go. That's more what I'm after. So, I'm going to go back to my liner. I'm going to grab a small amount of that. I'm going to find that top highlight, or that top edge, and I'm doing this motion before I even get there. So I'm doing the motion of the line before my brush makes contact with those pieces of wood, simply because there's a lot of detail to each of those grains, and I do need to pick out a few of the heightened ones without it being a messy line. Hopefully that'll show up. There we go. Just on those topmost bits. Just to give us the raised definition of those. So, I do feel like I want a little bit more silver back on the inside lines. It's not popping off the base enough for me, the padlock. I'm going to silver up all the highlighted edges, or all the raised edges even, and hope that does the trick. If not, I might actually have to resort to a wash, but that will probably do it. There we go. Just so it's noticeable. Right. Now comes the tricky part. I need to glue that broom to here. So hopefully it should be dry enough, and I'm going to try and have it so that it's back here and it looks like it's going towards those bits to sweep them up. And I'm going to have to be quick, I'm going to have to be precise, and I'm not looking forward to it because I can be real messy with glue. So, let's grab. I'm going to take, this is just some Stronghold cheap glue. I'm going to find my flat base. I'm going to try and put just a little bit on that. I don't want it to overgo too much. I don't want it to flow. I don't want it to go absolutely everywhere, because I'm going to be using an accelerator, which is this stuff. This stuff is really good. It's an activator, an accelerator. You spray it on to the bit that hasn't got the glue, and you wait for it to evaporate, which you can blow on to get it to do that, and you quite literally attach the areas in which you need to glue, and you just hold it for a second, and if I've got it right, which I actually think I haven't put the right contact points down, there you go, it should activate the glue in seconds. There we go. My problem here is the contact points. I now need to be super careful and make sure that as I'm painting this, I'm not too heavy-handed, because what we don't want to happen is for me to knock that off and then take some of that paint that we've already put on there back off again. And that's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie, that's going to be really, really hard. So, what I can do for now is I'm going to grab some more of our white. I'm going to finish painting that spell effect. So again, this is Trooper White. This is from 2 Thin Coats. I really like this particular paint because I don't feel like I need to thin it down absolutely tons or at all sometimes, especially when I know I'm going to airbrush over the top of it, or when I'm going to do something like a contrast paint. I just really, really like it. The 2 Thin Coats paint range has been really fun to play around with, and would recommend. So, and I just need to make sure that I'm getting into all of those corners without hitting the broom or knocking it off. It is all about dexterity at this point, I believe. But knowing me, I will absolutely drop this as soon as I'm done painting it, or halfway through, because I'm a klutz. Right. I'm just twisting the mini around, just have a look at where everything is. I definitely don't want to get any on the base. Just using small little kisses just to get in there. Nah, I believe in you! Thanks, Siobhan. Are you allowed to say what you're working on next for your crochet? Or is it another secret one and then a reveal? Again, I'm just trying to get a nice amount of coverage anywhere that airbrush is going to hit for this spell effect. I really want it to be a strong colour, so I'm really trying to make sure, especially like towards the bottom here, it is really, really thick amount of spell area. It's like a thick tendril of arcane weave, I guess. And we'll go from there. Okay, so that is that bit all covered. So I'm going to come away from that particular paint, and now I'm going to grab this. This is XV88. This is one of my absolute favourite tan colours. However, Muggins here left it slightly open in my paint table, and it's quite dried out. But, do you know what's quite fun? Airbrush thinner. Because this stuff, a couple of drops of it can sometimes reactivate your paint. And this is a kill or cure mission. So I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to shake it up for a little bit. And then I'm going to mix it around with my brush, and I'm going to use that for the bristles of my broom. I really want the bristles to be a lighter tan colour. I really want to think back to like Fantasia and to Disney cartoons where the straw that's used on the brooms is like really like a hay. And I think XV88 with that tan colour against the dark oak brown that we've used for the base colours, and then a contrast to the fur brown, that reddish brown that we used for the highlight on the base. I think this is going to go more down the yellow routes, and I think it's going to stand out quite a bit, and it's going to look good when we hit it with the OSL. Okay, so that has genuinely brought us back to there. So, I'm just making another moth to make sure the pattern isn't totally unreadable. Oh, awesome. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a bit harder because that spell effect does encompass a lot of the broom, and I need to just get in there real carefully. And luckily I've still got over half an hour, so I'm not too worried about time. I don't need to rush, but I just need to pick out those areas of the bristles and just get that XV88 on there. I could have maybe done it first and dry brushed it, but the liner is pretty good at going across, and you can use it on its side to leave the recesses dark. It's almost a style of dry brushing, I guess, to use the side of the liner brush to do my strokes, leaving the darkened areas. Or I could do what I don't normally do, and I can go in and I can use a wash on those just to re-pick out those deeper recesses between the bristles around this mini. But who knows just yet. The main thing is going to be when we get to adding our bright colour for that arcane spell. So check up chat. Awesome. So, for those of you who haven't seen as well, the Airbrush company over on YouTube has just released their first video with Richard, who obviously normally does this show with us, and it is quite informative. For those of you who are either looking to get into airbrushing or are already into it, it's quite fun to see how Richard goes about painting, but also how Ross, the airbrushing guy from the airbrushing company, talks about the maintenance and the use of the iWaters, so the airbrushes right here that they've sent out to us as well. And it's very informative. It's well worth a watch. So I was watching it earlier today, which is why I'm like, I want to use my airbrush. I don't want to wait till the shows. I want to get cracking. Okay, so that's the XV88 colour. I'm gonna wait for that to focus. I'm gonna have to stand up, aren't I? Right. There we go. It's a little bit mottled at the moment, but that's going to be fine, because once that dries and once we've got other things on there, I think it's going to work out quite well. So, I could take some XV88 and add some yellow to it, just to do a couple of highlights, but I want to wait for that to dry first. Next up, I should probably make sure there's nothing that I've missed with the oak brown. Or, just like there on the back, there is a tiny bit where the white hit the broom. I'm going to tidy that up now. And the reason for that, instead of going, oh, well, the airbrush is going to hit it, actually, when the airbrush hits it, it's a really thin, almost transparent layer of paint. What I don't want to happen is there to be an obvious patch of white on the broom. I want the broom to be the broom colour, so that when that airbrush hits it, the white's going to pick up on the spell, but the actual colour of the pink, which I'm going to use, is going to go over the brown. It's going to give a more realistic effect to the light source. Right. Just need to make sure I haven't missed anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to grab my airbrush. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use it to dry a lot of this one, which is a great technique that Richard actually taught me. So by doing so, I just use just air in small little bursts, and I can use that to dry the paint that's already on there. Now, this is where I need your help, because last time I used an airbrush in this room, it kept cutting out my microphones, and we've already had tech issues at the start of this stream. So if you can, just put in chat if it goes completely dead or if the noise is atrocious, because, yeah, this is me testing out, ready for future streams. So just let me know if anything goes horribly wrong. And I'm choosing, so there's literally nothing in the cup. This is brand new out of the box. And I'm just using it as cold air to quite literally dry this mini, rather than sitting here going all over it. What colour are you doing? The Moth Siobhan, the new one. For those of you who haven't, or maybe haven't clocked Siobhan of the Dead, is Siobhan from our Blood Punk campaign. And you should go check out their Instagram and stuff like that, because they've been working on a lot of patterns recently. And also, book that is releasing. I'm looking forward to getting them into painting for their Blood Punk Mini, which we need to sort out. Oh, there's a patch just there that I've missed that could be white. Just on the back, that little arcane nubbin. Nubbin. Now that's a sexy little airbrush. Honestly, I'm terrified of this thing. I'm like, I don't want to put paint through it. I'm going to break it. I'm a klutz and I'm horrible. But it does feel good, and it's a nice weight. And compared to what I'm used to using, which are these like £25 TimberTech ones that I got for cheap to abuse them on shows like this. We're going to be doing a big show of painting up the Monster Manual with the airbrush company, Ross from there. So Richard, Ross and I are going to be doing, and I can probably say it, we haven't put the banners out yet, but the Adult Black Dragon in a few weeks, like I think it's like May 1st, with our airbrushes, and it's a big mini, and I'm terrified, because unlike those guys who use an airbrush to paint most things, I freaking don't. However, I have used them before, so I'm not a complete noob, but I don't know how forgiving these ones are. This one, like sunset vibes, orange pinks. I'm desperate to make a Mothra themed one though, and a Death's Head Hawk and a Mothman. That would be amazing. Okay. Cool, so the sound hasn't cut out, which is really good. Right, I am actually going to come in to try and get some of those highlights first. Now that that's dry, I'm going to take some XV88. I'm going to put that into my palette, and then I'm going to take some Demonic Yellow, which is an Army Painter paint. And I'm using a majority of Army Painter because I know their consistency for airbrushing for how I usually do it. And yeah, I just trust it, you know? So, that's probably a bit too yellow. So I'm going to come back in with some more XV88 to one side and try and mix those together. I went way too far in there. I'm going to pull little bits of this already mixed together. There we go. Into my other side of my palette. And I'm going to use that. Again, I'm going to use the liner because it's got nice long bristles, which means I can get into and underneath where those lines are and where the spell is, so that I can quite literally follow it down without going too far into anything else. I just like a liner brush, if I'm being honest. I use them for a lot of things. So hopefully you should be able to see already. Come on, focus up. There we go. Just getting that cartoon style browny yellows for those bristles. That's what I'm after. Once more, we're going to come in and I'm going to dry that before I use the airbrush for the arcane spell. I'm also going to have to test the airbrush before it to see how wide and how thin I can get the spray, because what I don't want to come in is from up here and be like, cover the whole thing. I really want to follow those lines without getting it on everything else. And what I found is airbrushes can be very forgiving, but if you get it wrong, they can be very unforgiving, and that's what daunts me, especially with the mini so small. But I think we're at that point now where I need to start applying paint to it through the airbrush. So I'm going to take this is airbrush thinner, and you know, Ross, if you end up watching this video and you're like, oh my god, what are you doing, you know, let me know. I'm going to add a few drops into the cup, and I'm going to use fluorescent pink, and this is going to be my spell effect. I really want something just different. I didn't want to just go with green like I did for the animated swords. I really wanted to use a different colour, and I thought pink would be really fun. Very bright, very eye-catching. So this is the AK fluorescent pink. And probably one of my first times using AK properly for an airbrush. Okay, so probably only need to add 1 or 2 drops. Put the lid back on before I drop anything. Then I'm going to put my finger over the end. I'm going to backwash, which is to pull down and pull back. This is called back mixing. This allows me to mix the paint. So I can already tell from this spray here that it's a little too thin. That's fine. I actually probably can turn the pressure down a little bit first. Okay. Still a little bit too thin. I'm going to have to put just a bit more paint in there and not get it on my table. 2 more drops. Push it down the cup with a brush. So I'm going to use my piece of tissue down here, and what I'm doing is I'm pressing down to activate the trigger, and then I'm pulling back ever so slightly just to get my line work and my pressure right, essentially. Hagley, good morning! All the way from the States. How is Adepticon going? The swag bag looked amazing. I am, for the love of God, about to try and airbrush this with the new Iwata Eclipse, and I'm freaking terrified. So, here we go. I'm going to start near the top and away from myself. I'm doing tiny little bursts. And the paint isn't actually released until I pull back. So when I push down, it's just air. And then I can pull back, apply a little bit of paint, and then push forward, so it's just air again to dry the paint. Trying to keep a decent distance as well, so that if it's spiders, which is if there's too much liquid or too much water, it's not just going to spray everywhere. Now I've got my eye in for where the direction is and where it's hitting, I can be a little bit more free to follow some lines. Just steady my hand to the bottom. Hopefully the sound is still coming through nice. so far, that's the effect we're getting. And obviously across the bottom underneath the spell, we've got a bit more going in this side, but yeah. I'm getting ready to head to the convention centre. Amazing. So I need to make sure I'm not running out of paint in the cup. And I only put a little bit in there just to test it, but we're going to go again. I'm going to add a little bit of the pink, then I'm going to add some more of the thinner, just to keep it the same consistency. We do not want to overdo it or underdo it. If we underdo it, we could clog it. If we overdo it, we're going to get spider veins. Bubbling up, so pulling back. Okay, a little bit higher pressure this time. Okay, so we've got quite a wide spray on there. Okay, so come up a little bit more just to blow that through. Okay, I actually think I need a little bit more thinner in there. 1 or 2 drops. And this is what I'm scared of, it's like getting the mix wrong. There we go. Okay, we're back in. So, Geeky, it feels really good, and I'm just trying to get used to the spray levels, the amount of paint to put into it, how close to be. Obviously, I'm very used to a different airbrush, and I don't often use one, because that's not how I normally paint, but actually, since seeing what Richard has been able to do on this show, especially in the past couple of weeks, I'm like, all right, I need to up my game. And hopefully we can do that while also teaching people how to use new techniques like an airbrush. And it helps when, you know, we've got companies like the Airbrush Company who are willing to help us out and send us out some stuff. And again, I'm just trying to do tiny little bursts just to follow the spell effect around without going too far into anything else or without making it wet. So on the back there, I've actually oversprayed a little bit and it's got a bit too wet. So I'm just going to use the airbrush from a distance just to dry it off before I continue, or else I could end up stripping some of that paint off. Ah, Geeky! More with the gift subs, you kind soul. And what I really want now is a really strong fluorescent finish. And what you should see as well is the slight bit of overspray that we get towards those bristles should begin to look like light coming off the spell towards them. Come on, focus up. There you go. Still got a few areas that need just a little bit more, but we're getting there. Thanks, Siobhan. Yeah, I really like the pink. Just trying not to overspray anywhere. Or go too far forwards onto the base. But we do need some overspray, because that's what OSL is. We're actually not too far away. We've got some underparts to get at. Ah, see now, what I've done there is an overspray. So I'm going to take a little bit of tissue that's dry. Just going to make almost a brush out of it. I'm going to dab away some of that from the actual broom handle. We had some layers before, which is fine, but that created quite a wide water spray. But we don't want that, so we're taking it back away again. Oh, the lighting in here is a pain for trying to get this to focus. There we go. And actually, we're really not far away from being done. We need that base to dry so we can make sure that we haven't overdone it on there. So again, from a distance, I'm just going to use that airbrush just to dry anywhere that is still wet, just so we can see the final effect of the airbrush. But even then, I know my technique isn't the best and it shouldn't be that wet. So hopefully Ross from the airbrush company, when we do the shows with them, will be like, right, knock it back a bit, do this, do that, and can teach me how to use my crayons. But I do really want this to be dry before I do anything else, so I can actually see where else needs hitting or what else needs to be approached. So what's on for the day at Adepticon, Hagley? Have you got classes today or any seminars? Does he get a bamboo cane as teach you properly? I hope not. I think him and Richard are going to be potentially in the same rooms for things, but I'm all the way down in Cornwall, so it's got to be a pretty long cane. Or if he whips me too hard, I'll just be like, Daddy. Okay, so we've actually got a bit under the backside here that I could probably get a bit more. And it's just trying to keep the nozzle pointed at the actual spell effect, so that the rest of it that goes over is that residual OSL, but without it being directly sprayed. But I think that has worked quite well. Just gonna dry it off again just to make sure. And that is the key that I've learned so far, is to just make sure that between the layers it is dry, because you're going to get mistakes or problems when it's not. Nothing on my schedule today other than meeting with the folks from TurboDog. Oh, nice! You're meeting up with Greg and Meredith, who were lovely when we spoke to them when we had them on your show. No, teach. Sorry, Daddy. Yeah. God, I'm a glutton for pain. Okay. I'm wondering if I should dry brush some areas of the spell effect now with a bright pink, just to pick out some of the highlights again. But again, that's the kind of thing I'd want Richard here for, to be like, no, do this one. Okay, so I'm going to dump this out now because I'm going to finish using that. And I'm just going to throw in some airbrush cleaner. This is the Iowata one they sent me from, again, the airbrush company. And I'm going to actually take off all of the bits I need to take off. I'm just going to clean that up a bit before I move on. Just going to grab a brush. I could clean this at the end, but I just don't want it to sit in there, and I really want to look after this. Okay, right. Quick clean done on that one. Let's grab another clean piece of tissue, especially because it's dry. And I'm just gonna use again just that air, just to make sure that we're fully dry before I even try and attempt to dry brushing. If I try and dry brush anything while it's wet, I'm gonna strip the paint off, and we're gonna end up just seeing the primer underneath or the mini, and we do not want to do that. We want to make sure that every layer is dry before we scrape this with another brush. Saturday's the Artist Opus Painting Seminar. Oh, awesome! Oh God, you'll learn loads from those. So I've still got 9 minutes, so I'm feeling pretty confident with this mini. All I need to do, I think, is dry brush a little bit of, let's go that way, zoom in, pink onto this particular mini, and also rim the base with a black. That way we're going to get that separation between table and mini and terrain so that everyone can see it, and we all, you know, who doesn't like a rim? Right. So, I will grab a pink, which I didn't grab earlier, and I'm going to grab, ooh, I'm going to have to grab two to have a look at them against the mini. So we've got Wicked Pink and Pixie Pink. I think Pixie Pink might be the best highlight. That was a damn cheeky grin. You know it, Geeky. You know it. I'm a cheeky boy. I think if we did the Wicked Pink, it would detract from the OSL and would be too dark for the top. So I'm going to use that Pixie Pink, and I'm just going to use it in the highest areas with a very soft dry brush. If I was smart, I'd use something like a blue or a purple. Oh, I could use like a blue and try and wet blend it in. Oh God. I couldn't believe that there was the complete Skaventide Age of Sigmar box in the swag bag. Yeah, that's nuts. Like, if people haven't seen it, go over to Hagley's Instagram, which is Dragon School Studios, or no, D&D Painter 76, sorry, and have a look at the stuff that they got in the swag bag from Adepticon. It's fucking wild. Oh God, am I gonna? No, surely I'm not gonna do blue on the tips. I'm not that stupid, am I? Or am I? No, he's chosen pink. I've chosen pink. I've put it in the palette. I've put it in the palette. That would be wild! If I'd have thought about that before, I'd have done that. Do it. Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. Tell you what, let's put the pink on first and see how much time we've got left. Again, I'm just trying to find those nice raised areas of the spell and apply those to it. Let's try and get that. There we go. I might have to knock that light away so that you guys can see. So I think the highlights being created by that aren't giving it a true depiction. Oh, I got 5 minutes. Oh. Do it. All right. Fine. Why do I do this? I know exactly which blue to use as well. So this is Bright Sapphire. Again, this is an Army Painter, Fanatics. And I'm about to ruin my mini. I do this every time. Why do I get to the last 5 minutes? and decide to do something stupid. Okay, this is a highlight. This is a very bright blue. I've left some of that pink on the brush. That way we get a little bit of that nice tone coming through. I do need to make sure I've got no wet parts of that particular blue on there, because we do not want to smudge this. I just want the very tips of those spikes of magic is arcing off. The problem with this being so dry as well is it really wants me to go at it on the brush front. I just need to remember sometimes less is more. Okay, I don't know if this is going to show up. Let's turn that light away again. Don't know if the camera quality picks it up, but we put just a few little hints of blue on the very outskirts, where there's like flicks of the magic. I think they'll probably show up better in a photo, but maybe I've ruined it, maybe I've not, who knows. I can barely tell on the camera, but I can see it with my eyes. Get real close. No, you're not going to see it really on there. Too much of the wrong light in the room. But I've got 3 minutes. 3 minutes left. Wet parts. Sweet bisexual spell effect. Hell yeah. Right. The last thing left to do. I have to rim the base. I'm just going to use some matte black. I'm just going to go around the base. And then we're done. 1 hour, 1 mini. Definitely tabletop ready. Okay, so here I need to be careful. I'm actually going to take this glove off, because what I don't want to do is end up with black on my glove and then touch the mini anywhere else. Again, using the tip and the side of the brush just to go round and paint up that rim. Nice solid colour. We're really going to see separation from the table when it's down on there. That is it. Okay. So, I'm going to stop the timer. I've got 1 minute 32 left out of my hour. I'm going to see if I can get that. Come on. There it is. Animated broom in 1 hour. I would happily say that that is tabletop ready. Fuck, I love this mini. I think this has been my favourite mini so far of this entire series. 63 episodes so far, and that's my favourite mini. Which, oh, let's go away from the Starfinder battle map and go down this way. Yeah, please go check out Warrior Prince 3D. They are tremendous. If you just need minis for your campaign, but you're like, I don't really know, I haven't found any. Have you got anything that fits? He's got something that fits. Don't you worry. He will find you something. Like I said at the start of this episode, I literally sent him a list of about 20 different names and went, there you go, no images, nothing like that. And he's come away every time with the perfect mini, and that is the Animated Broom episode 63 all done. I'm going to get pictures of that up onto Instagram, Blue Sky, all the rest. You can find the links to the socials if you go across to the About on Twitch or to the link tree in the YouTube description below. When this one goes up, you can find the links to myself, to Richard, to Twitch, to YouTube, to Discord, all of those. Because we do have a Discord, you can jump in on there. I'll put pictures in the Discord as well. Otherwise, thank you so much to everybody who's been here on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Again, thank you to the Airbrush company for sending me out an Iwata Eclipse to do shows like this with, which definitely saved me some time today. We're going to be doing, again, a special Painting Up the Monster Manual show with them, and we're going to be doing a show that talks about the 5 ways to spray, where Ross is literally going to teach me how to use this properly, because I still don't know how to use it. I'm guessing. Otherwise, those of you, especially you, Hagley, who's at Adepticon, go have a great weekend, go have a great time. Everybody else, thank you so, so much. May those dice gods be ever in your favour. We'll see you next time.